Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's executive. Going to begin just to welcome folks. We have approximately 9 months till the council elections next year. Don't look so fearful, Jack. Don't look so fearful. We obviously have got a lot of business to be getting through in that short space of time. So just to remind people that we've got a lot on the agenda today, and hopefully we will be able to move on swiftly through this morning's agenda. Declarations of interest. Oh, sorry, apologies. Beg your pardon, apologies.
Thank you, Convener. We do have apologies from Bailey Buchanan.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. No. Okay. We have the minute of the meeting of the last executive, Thursday the 18th of June. It's in your papers for perusal, and I would happily take somebody to approve the minutes to record. Okay, thank you. We then move on to the rolling action log, and I'll just go to Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Convener. And as usual, the rolling action log records those decisions of the executive where a further report has been called for and provides information on progress. The rolling action log is for information only, but is available for members' questions.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Okay, I'm just working my way through the rolling action log. Are there any questions in relation to any items on the rolling action log? No. Okay, thank you. Move on. The first substantive item is agenda item 5, and it is the economic strategy. We have no amendments in today, so it's open for members to ask officers questions. So I will just open it up just now if there are any questions to officers. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you. Should you maybe talk about what's new in this plan compared to the last plan we've just came off of? You know, the economy's locally has changed a lot in that time. We've lost a few major employers, but we've also got a lot of opportunities coming forward as well. So could you expand on that, please?
Yep, through you, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Redmond. Yeah, as you mentioned, I think there's been major structural macroeconomic changes since the last strategy was approved around 2016 it was. So the economy's grown quite significantly in that time, but we've seen changes in the visitor economy as well. I think Falkirk, the previous strategy focused more on traditional business support and inward investment. This is much more about supporting the transition to net zero and aligning skills and new opportunities for local people with that community wealth building approach, which is all about retaining wealth, improving assets and opportunities locally for people as well. The Community Wealth Building Act was approved earlier this year, which requires local authorities to have an action plan around community wealth building. So that's been a big change as well. Obviously, there's been change in terms of our town centres, which wasn't so apparent when the first strategy was approved in 2016. we've seen major changes in the way people engage with retail, town centre living, and obviously the COVID pandemic had a major impact on how people engaged with town centres and local economy as well. And the cost of living crisis that we've been through as well has seen major changes in the economy and access to jobs and services as well. So they're probably the big changes that we're looking to focus on, as represented in the themes. Obviously with Grangemouth, we've seen some significant job losses in Grangemouth, and this strategy really looks to work with our partners, the Scottish and UK Government, Scottish Enterprise, to position Grangemouth as a kind of a low carbon industrial hub for Scotland, in aligning skills, business transition and inward investment with that. And we've seen major investment programmes approved for the council and partners, the Forth Green Freeport, the Falkirk and Grangemouth growth deal and the tax incremental finance initiative. So there are some major changes we've seen in the strategy we'll focus and use to develop the economy over the next 10 years.
Thanks, that's a very detailed answer. It even went on to my next question as well, so I don't need to ask that. The other thing I was wanting to kind of touch on was there is a lot of opportunities coming forward. We've seen things like battery storage, grid upgrades, maybe data centres. There's a lot of new industries that could come in, get the potential really in Falkirk to harness that, but there's a lot of community opposition sometimes to newer developments as well. How does this plan set out to balance that?
Yeah, thanks again, Councillor Redmond. So, yeah, as I said earlier, a big focus of this strategy is on that transition to net zero and looking at new industry, less reliance on traditional feedstocks and fossil fuels. So, particularly the work that was done through Project Willow identified opportunities through sustainable aviation fuel, offshore wind, industrial biotechnology and things like that. They're all priority sectors that are represented within the Forth Green Freeport. So again, it's working with partners to look at the opportunities, importantly aligning skills development and job opportunities for local people within those new sectors as well. But clearly, we need to ensure regulation and planning is considered at those changes as well, and we are working with colleagues in the planning team and the government as well to ensure that these new industries are considered when they're coming into the area.
Thank you. And then one of the things we sort of touched on was the big change in the high street and the sort of retail economy locally. And you walk down the Howgate or whatever, there's a lot of empty shops now. How does this plan seek to sort of define more retail space going forward? Do you think there's maybe an over-provision of retail space? It seems like we're building more, there's more retail spaces getting built, there's more retail units kind of dotted round about the Falkirk area rather than maybe in the centre. Is that a risk if we build more retail units out the centre that could take away from the high street? I don't know how we would go about reducing the overall retail space, but there seems to be an oversupply. Do you see that continuing going forward?
You convener. Thanks, Councillor Edmonds. So, yeah, I mean, national planning policy will favour a town centre first approach. So any new development should consider investment in town centres before out of town retail, but there are kind of exceptions to that. So again, colleagues in planning would have to consider any applications through national planning guidance. I think practically there are measures we can take, and obviously the work that particularly Paul's team have done around the new arts centre and town hall. We've seen a reduction in retail space through Calendar Square. There was about 32 units in there. Similar in Grangemouth, where there was the project at Kerse Road, where we've removed the retail space and office block, and it's about investing in, as the master plans that we've seen come forward to executive talked about different ways that people engage in town centres, town centre living, recreational space, leisure and hospitality. So again, that's represented in the strategy that we need to look at different ways of developing our town centres and not relying on retail, because again, every master plan I think we've considered has said that the retail footprint is too large. So again, it's looking at creative ways of of finding new sectors to come into our town centres. As you may be aware as well, through Pride in Place funding received from the UK government, we've created a vacant premises improvement grant, £300,000 to encourage investment and new tenants to go into vacant units that have lain empty for at least 2 months. So we have seen significant interest in that scheme, and talking to the Business Improvement District and others, there is a lot of interest, particularly for kind of smaller start-up businesses. The days of the large retail chains are now challenged, and they are looking for the larger units. But town centres, certainly those smaller independent hospitality businesses that we can support through grants like that, is the way that we can go, as well as some other measures.
Thank you. It's good to hear that grant's making a real difference. My final question, you'll be pleased to know, is we've got a lot of talking about the kind of tourist economy, and we're actually quite good at getting tourists in. You know, I think the Kelpies is one of probably the number one in terms of foot numbers in Scotland, and we've got the Falkirk Wheel, Callendar House. But the thing that we've been quite poor at is translating visitors into spending in the local economy. How does the plan seek to address that going forward?
Through you, convener. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Redmond. So yeah, the tourism strategy that was approved in 2023 recognised that we have in Falkirk invested significantly in major visitor assets that you've mentioned. It's about getting people to stay here for longer, staying that extra night, and using the other facilities, particularly our town centres. And that's those two strategies come together. But we want to drive footfall into our town centres and get people to spend locally. Spend has improved. It obviously took a dip during the pandemic, but spend has increased. We've got a 20% increase target as part of the tourism strategy, and we are on course to meet that. But the critical thing is about getting people to stay longer in that extra overnight stay. It's about engaging with partners across the Forth Valley as well, and looking at how we promote the Forth Valley and Falkirk within that, and selling to the travel trade as well. So it's about getting tour operators to realise the benefits of selling packages for Falkirk and the Forth Valley, and that will help us to increase stays. I think the strategy talks about visitor accommodation as well. There is one hotel development underway in Falkirk, but we need to do some further assessments of hotel accommodation. But previously we recognised that Falkirk needed an extra 2 hotels. So again, that inward investment piece to attract new accommodation providers in Falkirk will be a key part of this strategy, and that will help the overnight stays and spend.
Thank you. And I actually just figured off another wee question in my mind, but of the sort of strategy overall, what are the sort of milestones and success measures? How do we know that maybe if we came back and looked in 5 years' time that the plan was achieving, or if it was underachieving the situation there?
You can be, yeah. So I suppose that there's two. There's a kind of outline performance framework within the strategy, but the two headline stats are employment growth and gross value added growth as well. So Falkirk for employment growth, we're sitting, Scottish average is about 7%, currently sitting about 6%. So again, we would be looking to at least achieve or better the Scottish average, and with investment in jobs, particularly through Forth Green Freeport and the growth deal, we would expect to meet our targets around employment growth and gross value added, which is about the value of goods and services in the economy minus the inputs to that. That would be a key measure as well. So they're the two kind of highline figures where would be KPIs we'd be looking at, as well as some specific KPIs under each of the themed areas. So for town centres, for example, it would be vacancy rates as a key measure, and that's a key measure to determine the health of a town centre. So vacancy rates would be a key one as well in that particular theme.
Thank you. Hopefully the plan can make a difference going forward. Cheers.
Okay, Councillor Spears.
Thank you. Page 29, can we focus on creating vibrant town centres? I know there's been a lot of money spent in Falkirk in the last 10, 15 years, but Grangemouth has had very, very little done to it. And As Keir, you're well aware by the daily emails that I have to send you about the condition and the maintenance and the state of the town centre. You can hardly attract new business when we can't, one, keep it clean. We can't. We have bins lying about all over the place. Our car parking area is continually full of potholes. Our drains are rarely cleaned, and we have flooding problems. We pay for a weed killing service that barely works, and they arrive when the weeds are fully grown, so you're left with dead weeds lying in your town. We're not quite at the stage of the tumbleweed rolling through the town, but can we have a great and advanced improvement in the service that we're getting to maintain our town centres? Now, I realise that the local people have done a great deal to help. They plant our planters, they clean the area. Me personally, I went round with weed killer and killed in the town centre. But the town needs to do something as well.
Councillor Spears, is there a question there?
The question is it going to be improved?
Okay.
I know that's a hard question, but it's a question that needs answered.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks through you, convener. Thanks, Councillor Spears. Yeah, I suppose one of the key measures that Council approved earlier this year, that Douglas's team will introduce a clean and green action team. So that will in part respond to some of the issues you identified within town centre areas as well as the wider area. We do have investment, as you're aware. Hopefully we come to executive early next year with the programme business case for Greenland Grangemouth, which will bring around about £12 million investment in the Grangemouth area. So some of that would be allocated to public realm improvements. And again, it's probably careful design to make sure that public realm is designed in a way that there is low maintenance as part of that. And I mentioned the vacant premises improvement scheme that we have running at the moment as well. And we do have interest in the Grangemouth area, so we'd hope in the coming months we would hopefully have some positive announcements about new businesses coming into the Grangemouth town centre. We're also planning to invest through the Pride in Place programme in a separate allocation to upgrade the Charlotte Dundas precinct, Kerseybank and Bowhouse area, which is a priority area. So I appreciate your comments are mainly around revenue, but I would hope the Clean and Green Action team would be able to contribute significantly to the issues you mentioned.
But we've heard all this before, and the place still needs cleaned, and it needs cleaned now. So what urgent action are we taking? Second question.
You convener, yeah, I'm happy to have another walk round with you, Councillor Spears, to identify specific areas we can look to improve.
The specific areas are the areas identified in the last walk round. Are we getting any urgent action?
Mr. Binney?
Through you, Chair, I think Keir's outlined quite an extensive range of interventions that the council will be taking forward. I don't recognise the suggestion that nothing has happened, and our team are very happy to go on site again and walk around and see any issues that you've got that are live.
It's the same issues that I've already identified, and I identify on a weekly basis, and have not been addressed. How many times do we need to walk round? How many times do they need identified? When will you take on board that work needs done now?
Just in response to that, the report in front of elected members today is the economic strategy for the Falkirk area in particular. If an elected member has a particular issue with a particular part of their ward, then very happy as ever to talk about that offline. But just to reflect that the report in front does not talk in detail about the Grangemouth town centre, so it wouldn't be for us to reference that activity in detail today.
So are you going to change the heading from Creative Vibrant Town Centres?
think at that point we will just move on and go to Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. It's a very ambitious strategy, and thanks to officers for bringing it forward. But I wonder if you could say a bit more. It emphasises community wealth building and inclusion. I wonder if you could say a bit more, please, about how we're going to ensure that all communities, including the outlying communities like the Braes and Bonnybridge and so on, are going to benefit from this strategy and not just certain areas. I should say not just the communities, but also businesses in terms of the community wealth building.
Yeah, through you, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Hannah. So I suppose community wealth building, as I said earlier, it's all about making sure opportunities, particularly for fair work, procurement, to the key measures are felt and experienced by all local people. So I think particularly for the work that colleagues in the education and training unit do, that is across the full area. The strategy recognises that while there are maybe some areas in the public transport system that need improvement, some of the links aren't quite there, and I know Douglas's team will be bringing forward a review of public transport later this year to executives. So I think that's an area we would certainly work hand in glove with Douglas's team on to look at where the connectivity is improved to make sure that local people can get access to employment, training and skills opportunities. Progressive procurement is a key measure, so that's about making sure that the power that the council and other public sector organisations have locally is there's opportunities for local suppliers, but also for community benefits for all local people, and colleagues in the community services team are working very hard around community benefits as well, and we're seeing some real improvements in the way that we're delivering community benefits. We've obviously got investment in the Pride in Place programme area, up to 20 million funding from the UK government, so that will see investment through a Pride in Place plan to be approved by the local neighbourhood boards. Again, that's an example of community-led regeneration for that particular area. And it's about access and funding for our local areas as well to ensure that need is met, and we understand what the needs are of our local areas.
Thank you. One of the second question is, there's reference to the Falkirk Economic Partnership and Management Group, but it's not very detailed. How are we going to ensure that there's decision-making authority, there's accountability, and what is going to be the governance arrangements? Do we have any more detail on that?
You can, yep, thanks, Councillor Hannah. So, yep, the strategy document you have in front of you sets out a proposed governance framework, and previously there was a Falkirk Economic Partnership, so that would involve representations from local further and higher education, the council, local businesses, as well as other partners, including Scottish Enterprise. So the proposal would be a similar body. We do, as the strategy notes and the report notes, we're in a period where there's developing regional economic working. So there's a proposal to bring back a report to council later this year on regional economic strategy, but also regional economic partnership. So the report sets out that we would come back within the next 6 months with a proposal around the governance for both, to make sure that there's no duplication in effort around governance of both the regional economic approach and the Falkirk economic approach. So as the report notes, that's an area we need to look at and consider the governance of both of those.
Aye, thank you. And just one final question. The report makes mention of the limited population growth, and that being a key economic constraint. What practical measures are we going to be able to take about that?
You can do that. Yeah. So again, the strategy talks about, the benefits we have in Falkirk, both the employment, the the culture, the heritage, but we're not that great at presenting that outwardly. So there would be a proposal to develop a place branding approach to work with house builders and others to promote the Falkirk area as one. We had a session earlier this year where we invited local housing developers in. That was a forum that was running up until around about COVID time. So we've reintroduced that. So I think it's about improving partnership with housing developers and understanding what their needs are and what the barriers to development in the Falkirk area are. Colleagues in planning will refer to the fact that it's not an issue to do with land supply, but it's the conversion of housing sites into developable sites. So it's again working with housing developers to understand what the constraints are, and it's about infrastructure investment as well to support housing growth.
Thank you, convener.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Colley.
Thank you, convener, and thank you very much for the report. It's a really interesting read and very detailed. I had one question. I was really pleased to see the in focus area 2 around aligning skills and opportunities about adult reskilling, particularly recognising as retirement ages increase, and I think we all know that the idea of a job for life for one employer for most people now simply doesn't exist, and people will require that support throughout their careers and throughout their working lives, and this might be behind the detail, so I appreciate that, but I wondered if there was a potential gap around the older workforce, those with significant skills and experience who could continue to offer a lot to employers, particularly I was reading some research by Age Scotland, and there's certainly significant gaps and discrimination for older workers, and I apologise for reading out some stats around 4 in 10 employers. Only 4 in 10 employers are open to hiring people aged 50 to 64, and fewer than 1 in 5 will recruit workers over 65, and thus the older workforce, when they lose employment, are more likely to be out of employment for longer, and obviously more likely to have health conditions. And I just wondered if our strategy around retraining, around support and skills, and building new skills for the current economy recognises that sufficiently, because actually it's going to be more and more important for our local economy that we make sure that our older workforce is it's hard saying an older workforce when we're actually talking about 50 upwards, which is really depressing, but actually we're going to have people who are going to be working for another 20 years beyond that, and for younger people now it's potentially even longer than that. So actually our strategy, which is a 10-year strategy now, needs to be recognising that at the earliest point.
Yeah.
Through you, convener. Yeah, you've just depressed me because I'm on the verge of that threshold myself. So, yeah, I think the strategy probably, you're right, it doesn't go into that detail. Sarah McCulley will be bringing a skills employability strategy in September, which will address more of the detail around that. But as the strategy notes, Falkirk does have an ageing population, an ageing workforce, so it is something we really do need to consider. It does talk about, as you mentioned, reskilling and retraining for older age people. So the bracket you mentioned would come into that as well, but it doesn't name it specifically. But I would say the skills employability strategy would be the key measure for that, which this strategy does align to.
Thank you, Councillor Colley. And Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, convener. I hear it. Is the volume do you want me to speak more quietly? Is the volume needing adjusted? I'll go ahead.
On you go, Councillor Murtagh.
I'll try not to scare you. I wanted to ask some questions about the local development plan the role of the emerging plan, local development plan 3, both in terms of how it's mentioned with sustaining, housing growth and affordable housing and appropriate housing to match the needs of the economic environment, and also how in the local development plan 3 process, it's mentioned in the report very clearly with respect to housing growth, but maybe not quite so much in terms of the direct links with developing where the most appropriate sites for business are. And I know that there's narrative around that, but I wanted to ask how those things were dovetailing in the process of how you've come to this economic strategy. Thank you.
Michael?
Thank you through you, Chair. Councillor Murtagh. Yeah, just to reassure members that my service covers economic development and the planning and building standards service, so we work very closely together. So there has been an initiative we entitle Future Falkirk, which is looking at that very aspect of land and housing growth, land uses and housing growth. We clearly have a significant industrial complex, and parts of that are no longer in use, and we will see areas of those lands declining. So we need to be aligned to future opportunity uses and economic development uses of those lands, particularly from the industrial heartlands of Greensmouth. So yeah, we are very much aligned and working closely daily with our planning colleagues, looking at the local development plan, looking at where we see opportunity for growth, particularly in housing, and that'll be coming forward over the next number of months as we bring forward what will we anticipate being LDP3 to local elected members to go through those very detailed land uses across our authority area. So yeah, just be reassured we are working very closely together, looking at where the economy is taking us and where land use has taken us through the LDP3 process.
Okay. If I have a follow-up, just staying on planning for a moment, there's been significant efforts across council to try to address issues where, for example, there are delays in the planning process, and that can have a significant impact on the willingness of businesses to invest in Falkirk if they believe that the planning process is more likely to be challenging for them. I wonder whether there's anything that you can say about how those areas are being addressed, given that there are areas where there's significant delay in the planning process that perhaps might be seen as unnecessary.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, this is not related to this paper today. However, I'm happy to answer the question related to planning. The planning department itself, officers have gone through quite a bit of change in terms of some of the senior officers have left the organisation. So we are going through a recruitment drive to replace them. So there has been admittedly delays in the planning process due to staffing numbers. We are bringing a full complement back over the next number of months, so that should address part of the problem. I think there's other issues regarding decision making in the planning process, site visits delaying decisions, the very nature of elected members wishing to go and see a site delays an application in front of them for maybe 2 or 3 months. That's just an inevitability, but that's absolutely the gift of the elected members in the planning committee to determine that. So I think we are doing our very best as officers to make sure we bring forward plan as effectively and efficiently as possible. But we are at the mercy of the planning committee in terms of decision making and delays potentially through site visits, etc. But we are doing our best to try and speed up the process and make it more efficient so that our community and developers are seeing this is a place they want to come and do business, and that's really important to us, and that's aligned to our economic development strategy as well, to make sure, and our LDP3, to make sure there's land available. But yeah, there is some challenges in the planning process we are fully aware of and doing our best to address.
I'm grateful for that answer. I think part of this has already been dealt with by others, but I like very much the sort of in the paper, the sort of Scotland regional Falkirk Council area segregation of where the different plans are coming. And I know that within regional, it has been mentioned the regional transport strategy, and I did have some questions about. Obviously, we know our integration and our work with other councils in the area, but how we were looking at the regional transport strategy was within the Cestran area, which is South East Scotland, which doesn't include our partners in Stirling, and how we are kind of working at a kind of almost multi-regional level to address the issues with connectivity across not just the regional transport strategy area, but for example, with North Lanarkshire, with Stirling, with Glasgow, with Edinburgh, how does that all come together? What are the routes that we're looking at in the economic strategy to deal with that?
Thank you to you, Chair. It's difficult for me to comment on regional transport issues. That's not what the paper today is directly about, but the point you make about how do we make sure communities are connected are absolutely in our local economic strategy. We are bringing forward, as Kay alluded to, a regional economic strategy probably the end of November. We're looking to bring that forward to elected members and members in Stirling and Clackmannanshire. So we'll be looking at those very aspects of how do we make sure that our community are better connected to access jobs, to access healthcare, whatever. So I think that would probably be a better place for that discussion to take place, if you don't mind.
Okay. Thanks, Convener. My question's finished.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nutter. Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. When I've been reading the plan, I see a lot of statements in terms of this is the vision, these are the objectives, but I'm not seeing any targets. Like, what is the rate of local economic growth that we want? What's the rate of employment that we want? What's the rate of population growth that we want? Just so we get a sense of direction in terms of the numerical numbers that behind the document.
You can, yeah, you're right, Councillor Bundy. There is a performance framework there, but the strategy does note that that's to be populated, and we'll need to come back or assess that once as Councillor Hannah noted, the governance group is established. So there are outlined targets there in terms of key performance indicators, but we've not set specific targets as yet around them.
Can they be sent to local members once it's been finalised?
Of course, yes.
Thank you. That's me, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions, there is no amendment. I will then go to Councillor Garner as the portfolio holder.
Thank you, Convener, and thanks to members for all the questions, and well done in Kieran answering them pretty full. As we have heard, this report provides the Executive Committee with a proposed 10-year economic strategy for Falkirk. The strategy recognises that Falkirk is operating a period of significant economic change and that we have experienced a number of recent challenges, not least the closures of some key businesses and associated job losses. But the strategy also highlights a number of competitive advantages that provide a strong foundation for the future growth in Falkirk. The strategy presents an ambitious but realistic vision of Falkirk's future. It seeks to build on existing strengths while addressing economic challenges through investment, skills development, regeneration and inclusive growth. While Falkirk Council has led in the development of the strategy, it has been in consultation with local businesses and key partners. The success of this strategy will depend on that ongoing strong collaboration and partnership working. As elected members, we are being asked to support a framework that will guide economic decision making over the next decade and help ensure that economic prosperity is shared across all Falkirk communities. I'm pleased to support this strategy and would like to again thank officers and all businesses and other partners who have contributed. Happy to move the report, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. We have no amendment, so I'm happy that we move to group leaders to give an explanation why, and obviously there'll be a further opportunity in due course. Councillor Hannah.
Sorry, do you not need a seconder first?
All right, apologise. Yes, I second the report.
Thank you. No, we have no amendment. This is an ambitious strategy, and we look forward to getting reports on the outcome, because its success will depend less on the vision and more on the governance, the funding, and the measurable outcomes, because we have to make sure it benefits all communities.
Okay, thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. A lot of good questions asked by elected members, and I suppose that's our job to scrutinise, and well done the team for their answers. It is an ambitious strategy, a 10-year strategy, which hopefully us over 50 will be able to see it come to its fruition. And just hoping that all our aspirations are met at the end of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bailey Kerr. Councillor Spears.
Vision. Thank God for vision. But what we need really is action, and we need action sooner rather than later. There's no amendments to this vision today because a vision is just a vision. We are inundated with paperwork on visions and consultants' reports, but we really need to get back to basics and get our council on track, and let's see some action, especially in our town centres. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spears. Councillor Murtagh, any comment? No? Okay, thank you. In which case, are we happy to agree the report? Okay, thank you. Move on to item 6, which is the dignified funerals. Okay, there are, again, no amendments to this particular report, and therefore I will open it up to questions to officers. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. I'm really pleased to see this report, and I want to say thank you to the officers for all the work that has been done. When we brought forward the amendment to ask for this, we had looked at the Ayrshire examples, and I'm really pleased that you've built on that. So thank you very much for that. In terms of questions, the first question I have is about the fact that we have only four out of the 16 funeral directors signed up for this. While 4 funeral directors is clearly better than none, I wonder if you could say a bit more about those who have not signed up for it, and what can be done to try and engage with them on it.
For you, Convener.
Sorry, 4 out of 16, I should have said.
No, thanks very much for your question, Councillor Hannah. So there's probably no a definitive answer for all in regards to the other 12 who didn't take up participation of the scheme. But some of the reasons that we did get back was that they felt that they had their own sort of simplified funeral package, if you like, and that is recognised when you start to visit some of these sites, the 12 sort of funeral directors that didn't participate in the scheme. So I would say that would be one of the main reasons that they felt that they offered a similar package to what we were trying to implement. Other than that, I believe that there could have been an element of that we did have cut-off dates now to try and sort of go through the process to produce a finalised paper to bring it back to executive. So it could have been a combination of that. But going back to the East Ayrshire example, the number that we've managed to get on board in Falkirk mirrors what was sort of implemented in East Ayrshire, and that they also received 4 funeral directors that was willing to participate in the scheme. So we're quite encouraged with these numbers, and I believe that now, as you see in the paper, we're looking at a 2-year review period. It may come sooner, but there might be further interest now as this now new opportunity develops.
Thank you for that. Yeah, the proof of the pudding's always in the eating. Now, just my second question is about how you're going to tie information about the availability of this into the Tell Us Once process, because there is the thing which local government and central government tie up, so that in the event of a death, people don't have to go to different agencies. So how are we going to ensure that the information about this and about the help that's available is being properly communicated to everyone at this very difficult time.
Through you, convener. Thanks again, Councillor Hannah. Yes, so that's been one of the main topics of discussion as part of the development of this dignified funeral package, as the promotional campaign of that. So we will obviously work very closely with the funeral directors. We will look to print leaflets, put it on our council webpage, as well as putting in registrars, the local cemetery office, and the areas that we closely work with. And there will be a bit of dependency on the 4 funeral directors who are participating in this scheme to also promote it. So it'll be a combination of both.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally, just back in November when the council agreed the bereavement strategy, there was delegation for subsequent increased costs to the director. I wonder if you could say a bit more about how any changes in costs, because we know that inflation is going to keep going at the moment anyway. Any changes in costs, how that's going to be communicated with and all the funeral directors, and where they will be consulted on the impact.
Through you, convener. So in regards to when we brought the strategy up November 2025, we agreed at that point in time that for 26-27 the fees were going to go up 12.5%. And there was also going to be the element of the delegated authority to the director of the service. So we will continue to review that on an annual basis. Now, there's close activity with our service accountant, and it is about monitoring now fees aligned to all the different aspects of delivering that service. So as and when we get to more to the end of a financial year, that will ultimately allow us to produce that information to be considered by the director if there is a requirement or what that increase may be.
Thank you. Thank you, convener.
Thank you. Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, convener. I was a wee bit worried about asking questions on the bereavement strategy, but I think Councillor Colley has already depressed this all enough to take those fears away. So I think there was a few things, and I have spoken to James in advance of this. In terms of the packages and the breakdown of costs, just to kind of follow up where Councillor Hannah left off, there aren't actual costs within that template just now, and I understand that the way that it's structured, the package, the additional fees to Falkirk Council is effectively the area in which I suppose we're trying to directly input on the saving of money. But can you comment on how these fees kind of break down, where, like, how it reflects within the body of your report, what the final fees are in the 3 different packages, please?
Yes, happy to do that, Councillor Murtagh. And the reason I presented it like that in the paper, there's many different aspects that could have made it a bit more complicated to the reader. So I'm happy to go through that now. So under the proposal for cremation within the low cost funeral package, the cost was 3,293. And that would be a 21% reduction on the national average cost, from 2024, which is highlighted in the paper. But getting to your question for what is the element or the makeup of the Falkirk Council cost of that 3,293. So the Falkirk Council cost for cremation would be £1,049.10, which would make up 32% of the overall cost of the low cost option. So that's for cremation. For direct cremation, the low cost option cost is £1,450, and the Falkirk Council fee aligned to that is £518.70, which equates to 36% of the cost. And the burial element, is where it can get a wee bit more complicated. So the low cost option is £4,758. And the Falkirk Council fee aligned to that is 2,494, which is 52% of the overall cost. but we've made that top heavy because with burial, there's an element to purchase the layer as well as the interment, so that's the highest possible cost. If the customer, if you like, was only going to be purchasing the layer, then that would mean that the makeup of that cost for Falkirk Council would only be 25%. So these are the three different aspects, yeah.
Okay, and in terms of the way that the packages would be published, obviously I understand that fees are under review, but would they be published with like the literature or on the website so that it's clear what the costs are and how they're broken down?
I believe that's something we could consider going forward. Doesn't quite happen just now in regards to the breakdown of costs rather than the full cost, but that is something that we can take away with us. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask some questions on the issue of equalities, and also I was a little bit surprised when I first read the report to see that there wasn't a full EPIA, and you know that obviously death and bereavement is unfortunately a universal thing, but in terms of ensuring, it's mentioned in the report there's 16 funeral directors that are being consulted. Does that include a wide a possible spread of funeral directors that would cover faiths and traditions of all varieties in order to understand how we can design packages for all Falkirk residents?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Murtagh. Obviously, it is a wide spread of funeral directors, given it 16 funeral directors that we went into consultation with. I'm happy to look at that and share that information with you offline. I don't have it at hand just now, but certainly happy to pick that up with you later on.
Yeah, and obviously I appreciate that. I think, and it is within the review that within this paper that this is a 2-year pilot, if you like, or it will be reviewed after 2 years. I wanted to also ask, maybe you don't have this information, that obviously this is for Falkirk residents. We're trying to do something positive for all Falkirk residents, but the situation can be that where someone may pass away, unfortunately, in Falkirk, but it may be that they engage the services of a Falkirk funeral director, but they may need to be interred elsewhere, or that they may not have services within Falkirk which meet their particular needs and may need to go to the other city. So has there been any wider engagement in order that we are ensuring that all our residents have got access to a dignified funeral package?
I guess the answer to that question, Councillor Murtagh, is we can really only be responsible for service within the Falkirk area. The dignified funerals, similar to the respectful funerals in East Ayrshire, is recognised as good practice, and the other authorities within Scotland are looking at this very closely. And it wouldn't surprise me if they adopt something very similar to Falkirk Council. So I guess for me, it's a hard one to answer in respect that we can only really be responsible for burials and cremations within our own jurisdiction.
I appreciate that. I suppose my question is more that the way that we've broken down the fee structure is that the Falkirk Council element, if you like, is addition. It's like it's broken down as an additional part, or it's a constituent part. Whereas if we're looking at, we've discussed with Falkirk's funeral directors how to create a package of, and I characterise it as undertaking funeral director services that are as a minimum cost to our residents. But it might be that they undertake those services, but they don't wish to have they wish to be interred in Stirling, or we don't offer a service in our area that meets their needs. And that's what I'm trying to ask, was there any consideration of that where because there may be those of all faiths and none and traditions and cultures that there aren't necessarily the services to meet needs within Falkirk, but they could undertake the services of a funeral director within Falkirk?
So this is obviously a voluntary scheme, Councillor Murtagh, and again, that's highlighted within the paper. So that would probably be a question more for funeral directors as opposed to the local authority to answer. Of course, it's entirely up to the funeral director to decide or to offer whichever package they can and the associated price. So perhaps a question more for the funeral director as opposed to Falkirk Council.
I appreciate that, and I can take this issue up offline in more detail. I suppose what's before us today is something which Falkirk Council have considered for the benefit of all its citizens, and we're designing something. So we may not be able to achieve something because it's not available, but I'm trying to establish whether we've asked the questions to the best of our ability to understand the needs of our constituents. But we can take that up offline. I suppose the only other question I would ask is that in that same vein, obviously the packages that are there, they include, for example, provision of 2 options on all of them of a coffin, for example, which, whether there's been any consideration for other packages that maybe didn't require that and therefore could have reduced costs further. But I'm going to guess that the answer is possibly the same.
I guess the package, there are 3 packages there, Councillor Murtagh. If someone who's passed away, if their nearest and dearest would like anything extra in addition to the packages that are outlined, again, that would be a discussion or a negotiation between the party of the deceased and the funeral director to negotiate.
Just to be clear, I think you misunderstand that what I'm saying is I'm not proposing something extra. It's actually that there are things within those packages which may not be a requirement. For example, not everybody is buried in a coffin, and therefore those costs was there any consideration given to those significant other traditions where perhaps that isn't a requirement and the cost could have been reduced further, perhaps a 4th package or others?
What I would like to offer, Councillor Murtagh, is just referring back to the strategy that we got approved in November 2025. So I see where you're going with that, and one of the things that I'm going to mention is the possibility of us introducing a natural burial site within the Falkirk area, and that is something that we're actively looking at just now. So going forward now, as we mentioned, this is initially in for 2 years, but as and when we are able to accommodate other options, that would then be considered to be part as now in addition to the existing package as we go forward. So
okay,
new options will be considered. Yep.
Thanks, and I'll take the other issues offline. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears?
I'm sure anybody that watches daytime TV is inundated with cut price funeral adverts, and you can't help but notice the cost, and it's significantly less than the cost of our dignified funeral packages. Can you explain how we could maybe future cut it, because it's now getting so expensive that people can't afford it?
I think the prices that we offer, Councillor Spears, are based upon the cost of the service. And again, the rationale for all that was outlined within the paper that we presented to Executive in November. The prices that are advertised in television may not be the full package, if you like, including the interment and the burial, the cremation, etc. So difficult for me to comment on, a television advert that you're citing there. But certainly the makeup of the prices that we offer and the packages are based on the cost of the service, the running of the service, as per outlined within the Executive paper in November.
So it'll be great. Can we pay it up? If we start paying now, we can calculate when it's time for us to use that.
There are many members of the public that do have that arrangement in place with funeral directors, and obviously it's their discretion as to whether or not they choose to do that or not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Spears. If there are no further questions, I'm going to go to Councillor Forrest as a portfolio holder to speak to the report.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, all. This report brings forward a proposal to establish a dignified funeral package for residents across the Falkirk Council area. The initiative follows a request from the Executive made during consideration of the bereavement strategy. For officers to explore how we could work with local funeral directors to provide a respectful and affordable funeral option for our communities. The loss of a loved one is one of the most difficult experiences of any family faces. Alongside the emotional impact, many families can also encounter significant financial pressures when arranging a funeral. It is therefore something that we do what we can within our role as the council to support residents by improving access to clear, transparent and affordable funeral options. I'd like to recognise the work undertaken by the officers and local funeral directors in developing this proposal. Through engagement with funeral providers and by learning from approaches adopted elsewhere in Scotland, a collaborative package has been developed that provides a consistent standard of service while offering at costs that compare favourably with the national averages. Importantly, the proposal does not replace existing funeral arrangements or limit any choice. Families will continue to be free to make whatever arrangements best meet their needs. What this scheme does is provide an additional option for those who may be concerned about affordability and who would value a clear and straightforward package delivered by local funeral directors. The proposal is proportionate and practical. It places minimal demands on council resources, involves voluntary participation by funeral directors, and supports a wider objective around reducing inequalities, tackling poverty, and supporting stronger communities. I'm therefore pleased to bring this report forward and commend the recommendations to the Executive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Forrest. I'm happy to move the report, and I do have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Colley. Any comments or question or any questions or comments in relation to the report?
Just happy that this has been brought forward, and I look forward to further review to improve on the coverage and make things as easy as possible for people at one of the most difficult times of their lives.
Thank you. Really care?
No further comment.
Okay. Councillor Murtagh?
Yeah, I don't have an amendment, but I would like to see, as this is reviewed, and that there are maybe improvements to the equalities process as we go forward and looking at this next time. Thank you.
Councillor Spears?
I congratulate other officers for the work that's went into this. Quite a hard job and quite an emotive job, but and to think of all the different angles and to look into natural burials for the future, that is appreciated. I hope it all turns out well for such a serious subject, but I'm sure you will cope and cater for the needs of this district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're happy to agree. Okay, thank you. Thanks, folks. Sorry? Yeah. Okay, moving on to item 7. It's the payment arrangements for the PVG membership. Okay, I'll open it up to questions to officers. Nope. Okay. In which case, I will look to certainly move the report. I know that this was due to come forward earlier in the year, but with conflict with our trade unions in particular, we've come to an arrangement whereby there's a clear arrangement there whereby if people were employed by the local authority at the time and the PDGs were being paid for, we would then look to pay for those. Anybody new coming into the scheme will still be asked to pay. So based on that, I'm happy to move the paper. Are we content to? Sorry, Ian, you want to second?
Yeah, just happy to second, convener.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Is there any other wise-minded? Councillor Hannah?
Just really happy that the concerns raised by the trade unions have been taken on board by our officers and that an agreement has been reached. And in that situation, we have no amendment.
Okay, thank you. Bailey Kerr?
No comment.
Comment. Councillor Spears?
I just thank our officers for the report and that vulnerable groups are being attended to and looked after. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murtagh? No. Okay, thank you. Are we happy to agree the report? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call for a short recess just now. If nothing else, to let me stand and straighten out my leg. We'll say maybe 5-10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Given as consent, given it's not there in case of
Okay, folks, if we can come back into session, please. Okay, thank you for your indulgence there. Moving on to item 8 is the Treasury Management 25-26 Annual Review. And at this point, I will open this up to questions to officers. No, no questions? No, that's fair enough. We will then just go to moving of the report. I think the report's quite clear and comprehensive. We've met all our objectives for this year, having gone past, and note that the price index, CPI, is inflation is easing to 2.6 in June. However, inflation remains above the Bank of England's 2% target and continues to be influenced by energy prices. Geopolitical developments and wider economic uncertainty. Council's borrowing requirements have been met, and the strategy adjusted to be able to take that into account. And what we can see is our investment strategy, the outcomes, and members are reminded the objectives of the Council's investment remain first and foremost to ensure timeliness and full repayment of principal interest, and then securing adequate liquidity for the funds invested in final optimisation of investment returns consistent with those counterpart risks. I hope I've covered that reasonably well, Amanda. Obviously we've got the prudential indicators for going forward. And ultimately that is where we are. You have the report in front of you, and it is a strategy. So I would encourage members to support it. Councillor Garner?
Happy to second.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Tanner?
Just thanks to officers for all the hard work in bringing this forward, and my lack of questions is not because of a lack of interest, and it's not because I haven't read it. It is because we have seen most of this information previously, and I thank our officers for all their hard work.
Okay, thank you for that. Bailey Kerr?
No comment.
Thank you. Councillor Spears?
Thank the officers for their hard work, and as we struggle through another year, we'll see what next year brings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murtagh? No. Okay, thank you for that. Are we happy to agree the report? Okay, thank you. We have item 9, the Financial Projection Report 26-27. And it's in the name of the Director of Transformation, Communities and Corporate Services. I will open it up for questions to officers in the hope of Councillor Sinclair. capital projection report.
So I don't have any questions on the capital report, convener.
Councillor Spears.
Yeah, just about the Housing General Fund, the capital programme for Housing General Fund. I know this doesn't include the ongoing maintenance, but as I spoke earlier about Grangemouth Town Centre, in some of our flatted accommodation, you drive along and there's a forest growing out the guttering on top of the flats. Has the maintenance allocation been cut that far that we are no longer maintaining our buildings?
Karen.
Yes, thank you, Convener. Convener, the maintenance budget has actually been increased over the last year, and that was agreed by members in earlier this year. But if Councillor Spears has a particular concern, then we'd be happy to look into that through a discussion. Thank you.
As stated earlier, my particular concerns are constantly mentioned and constantly flagged up to the Housing Department. It seems as though we get a lot of sort of answers that don't really achieve much and don't really do anything to improve the situation. And a letter saying that it's in some programme somewhere down the line and nothing actually gets done isn't really cutting the mustard with my constituents and their tenants. So it's maybe something we should really revisit and look at seriously to improve our housing stock and maintain what we have.
Yeah, I didn't really hear a question in there, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Convener. Convener, it was really just to remind members that we've got £55 million of capital investment in housing. So we have got a high level of investment, and it accounts for a very high percentage of our budget overall. So I think we do well as a council. If you look at other councils by comparison, we do have a very good investment programme.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Hannah. There wasn't a question previously, so I'm going to go to Councillor Hannah. Yes, I'm stopping you from speaking. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. The borrowing requirement has reduced by 48.9 million this year, but much of that is just carried forward. What does it mean for future borrowing levels and future revenue budget pressures?
Thank you. So we, it is, as you say, it's just a timing issue. So we will have to borrow that funding at some point. It's just that we are unlikely to have to borrow it this year. So we should see a benefit in our loan charges that hit the revenue account for 27-28. But again, that will just be a timing issue because at some point it'll catch up and those loan charges will appear 28-29 or something like that. So as we're looking at, as you know, we're developing the financial strategy to come back to council in October, and we are looking at the loan charges and trying to just understand what potential there is to take any benefits into future years. But what I would say is that we've noted that our debt is still very high and is projected to increase as a result of the investment programme. And so we're really focused on thinking about how do we kind of recognise that's going to be the case for the next few years because of all this sort of really ambitious investment that we're doing. But sort of towards the end of that 5-year period, how do we start to address that and reduce that debt where possible? And we're seeing the housing side of the house make quite good inroads in that, and that's referred to in the revenue report where they're starting to repay, they're starting to use more CFCR, so they're starting to fund some of the capital from the revenue budget so they don't have to borrow. So we are starting to make inroads, but so it will have an impact. We're still sort of working that through and looking what the likely budget for 27-28 will need to be. But it is important to recognise we will catch up at some point, and we will. It's just a timing issue in terms of both borrowing and the loan charges.
So kind of following on from that, given the continuing uncertainty about inflation and construction costs and so on, what's the current estimate of additional affordability pressure on the major capital programme over the next 5 years?
Thanks. If I maybe start, and then colleagues may want to come in. So I think what we've said in our previous financial strategy and capital programme is that we should only borrow if we can identify how we're going to pay for that, which is kind of makes perfect sense. And therefore, we've, as you know, in the last couple of years, we've brought in a ring-fenced element of council tax to help support capital investment. Now, for us, that feels sustainable. If I know where the money is coming from to pay for the borrowing, I'm comfortable with that borrowing. What we can't do, or what we need to minimise as much as possible, is borrowing to add pressure onto the revenue budget with no clear mechanism for paying for it. So it is, as we've talked about before, a really kind of fine balance that we need to find between recognising that our assets, we have to do the structural maintenance, we have to do the improvement because they have to be fit for purpose, but without putting too much pressure on the revenue budget. And that ring-fenced council tax element, I think, is really important. It's been a really useful tool for us to be able to try and sustain and improve and maintain assets, but in a way that is financially sustainable.
Thank you. As you know, I'm always happy to see further investment, but we do have to pay for it. Thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, Councillor Redmond.
Oh, thanks. I was just wondering if officers could maybe speak about, we've seen budgets allocated for things like Blair's Bridge, the Town Hall, but the projects are sort of slipping forward. Is there no a real risk that with construction inflation, if we don't get these projects started, that, the cost of them are really going up? Blair's Bridge, I thought that was quite an urgent project when that was first kind of brought at the council budget, not even the last one, but the one the year previously, but we still don't seem to have had movement in that. The Town Hall, we really need to get that started, and we're sitting in this room here, it's not even really wind and watertight. So when are we going to see these projects actually come into fruition?
To yourself, Convener, in terms of the property projects, you'll see we've rephased a number of them. That's based on what we've had back from our construction partners in terms of cash flow. Specifically on the Town Hall, we have acquired the site, we've demolished the old building, we had allocated funding for it. It was based on a construction programme that was historic at the time without the engagement of our construction partner. We now have a revised programme for the delivery. You're quite right, Councillor Redmond, in that the longer projects go on, the bigger risk there is of construction inflation impacting on the costs. I would also add, though, that if we don't take our time and get the design right and make sure we optimise the size of the buildings, we're also at risk of rushing in. And we know the famous saying that fools rush in, so we have to be really careful that we don't just rush in and try to get things progressed and then we miss opportunities, but we also maybe add in accommodation that maybe isn't optimum for what we require. So in terms of the Town Hall, I'm fairly pleased we have a good direction of travel. We have a robust construction plan. We have a robust financial projection in terms of costs, which includes an allowance for construction inflation. And we have a programme that we will be reporting back upon once we get particularly through the pre-application notification process and through the planning process. They're the key undetermined dates at the moment that we have. So we're looking forward to progressing those. And other projects, again, something like Maddiston, we've already reported that there is substantial extra works there that have been identified. So as a consequence of that, there will be delays to to that programme. But again, we are building in elements of construction inflation to our projections. So hopefully that gives you an idea as to where we are in project.
Thank you. Don, is there anything to add on Blair's Bridge as well?
Thank you, Chair. I guess this is one of those matters where we agree to disagree, because it's my view that it would be ill-advised of the council to deal with the Blair's Bridge by seeking hand-to-mouth funding on a year-to-year basis to deliver it. So we identified a fault in the bridge. We gave a cost of what it would take to fix that bridge to council. Council allocated the money, and officers are now progressing through a 3-year plan to resolve that fault. I think the suggestion being made is that we shouldn't have asked for the £3 million up front. We should have drip fed it based on what we needed every single individual year. And I don't think that that's a sensible way to approach a critical infrastructure project like that. I want the money up front so that I know that we can fully deliver it. If elected members think that that was the wrong approach, then I'm happy to discuss it further. But personally, I think it's the right thing to do. And elected members and residents know 100% that bridge is going to get fixed, and we've put the money aside for it. I can get you an update on the individual project. My latest memory is that we are in the design phase, which will then allow the project to go out to tender. But I can get you a more full update if that would be helpful.
Thank you. I think that would just be reassuring to know when the money's there, to know when it's going to be completed. But I'll leave it there for now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Redmond. Amanda?
Just on the back of Councillor Redmond's question, I was just going to flag that this report for the first time has got a new appendix in it, Appendix 3, which is on page 202. That's responding to recommendations from our Audit Scotland report, Best Value report, and in that appendix we'll continue to develop it, but the purpose of that appendix is really to make sure that members are getting regular updates on these big major projects, because we recognise, they can feel like they're moving quite slowly at times in the early stages, but there is progress being made, and that's just our opportunity to make sure members get robust updates. Thanks.
Okay, Bailey Kerr, did I see your light on?
I had a couple of questions, but I don't think I need to ask them here. I'll just get the officers offline and save us some time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for officers? No. Okay, if we go to the recommendations, you'll see that this report is for Nota. And just therefore, I think that there is no need to actually speak to the report, and just ask if there's any comment that people would want to make in relation to it. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. I'd just like to say thank you to officers for the reassurance about the updates, because I think that is important for us to have updates on these matters. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bailey Kerr.
No comment.
Okay. Sorry, I should have formally have moved the report. So it'd be good to have a seconder.
Happy second.
Thank you. Councillor Spears.
Noted.
Okay. Councillor Murtagh. No. Okay, thank you for that. We're then happy to just note the report. Okay. Revenue financial projection again, it is just for noting. but I will open it up for any questions to officers. I'll go to Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, convener. I don't think that the questions that I've got are necessarily for Amanda. I think it's likely to be for John. I can see he's on the call. The table at 4.1.4 in the report notes that the education service is currently projected to underspend this budgetary year by 524,000. Yep, it's definitely not 524 million. Well, I mean, yeah, chance would be a fine thing. But yeah, I'm just looking for a bit more information on that. Now, I know that the secondary education and the early years are the sectors that are looking to provide the bulk of that underspend. There is some information in relation to the Class 98 contract, one-off savings for Class 98. But I wonder if we could maybe get some more information on the likely impact in the secondary education sector that the vacant clerical posts could be having, or if they are having an impact. But also some more information, I think, on lower than budgeted payments to partner providers and staffing vacancies and any impact that may be having on the services provided to parents in the Falkirk area.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Yes, I'm happy to clarify that. I think I'll just make a couple of points first before go into the explanations for that, and in particular, I'll draw your attention to paragraphs 1.1 and 4.1.2. And just to make this really clear, that this is the financial projection based on the first 2 months. I think I have that right. Amanda will confirm that, and it may change significantly because during the course of the year in education, it's complex and things happen to children and young people and families, and the service will always be there to step in and respond to that. So there may be a change later on. The second point I would make is that the underspend is a very small proportion of the overall budget. It equates, I think, there in 4.13 just 4.14 to 0.2% at this stage in the year. I think it's just important to put that into context of all the services we're delivering. And the third point I would make is that the team are working really hard right across all of our different services, early years, ASN, planning and resources, primary, secondary, to remain in budget and to reduce the risk of overspends. And in the last 2 financial years, we have managed to do that and to stay within the allocated budget. But specifically to the detail that you asked for, the underspend in secondary, as it is detailed there, our clerical staff right across all our centres and settings are the heartbeat of every school, and they have valuable roles in supporting all of our teachers and all of our other support staff and children and young people, and we would not be able to operate without them. We've got a big project internally underway called Modernising Our Education Business Support, and it's specifically to look at the role they now carry out in schools compared to the role they carried out when the job description was last updated, like a long time ago. So there's no school sitting without access to, because this is at a point in time, these vacancies, but there's no school sitting without appropriate clerical support. But the intention of that project is to look at the role they play, to look at any implications on grading, for instance, maybe or maybe not, and that will feature in our future plans for support. So I hope that clarifies that position. In relation to our early years, I think the explanation is provided in paragraph 4.18. It is a mix of staffing vacancies, but again, this is at a point in time, and it is, as you rightly say, lower than budgeted payments to partners, but ultimately it's due to fewer children taking up places over the last 2 years. Now, we have 11 private nursery providers and 37 childminders. All of this was detailed in the scrutiny report that went in March 2026. But just for reference, in 24-25, there were 483 children placed within our private nursery providers and childminders. In 25-26, that dropped to 358, and in 26-27, I don't have the exact figure yet, but we expect a further downward trend. So the underspend to private providers equates to approximately 33 places for 1140 hours. But both the staffing vacancies and the fewer children taking up places in private providers does fit in with the trend and represent falling roles across our ELC sector and across our primary sector as well. I think that's to be expected. We've just got about 3,000 young people in our nurseries, in our school nurseries and our standalone ELC centres in the private sector. So around 33, as I say, it equates for that underspend. Also, I should just add, to illustrate the point about it being a point in time, one of our partner providers actually went out of partnership. There are particular criteria that they need to meet so before we can go into partnership with them. However, they have just been inspected by the Care Inspectorate and received a good inspection, and so they are applying to come back on board as one of our private providers, and they have approximately 20 funded places, or up to 20 funded places. So we need to make sure that if all those 20 places were taken, the budget is there, available for that, and obviously that would reduce the underspend from the 33 places we've got at the minute. If they take up 20, we'd be down to 13, but we need a wee bit of flexibility in there. But certainly any parent that applies for a place in our nurseries, ELCs or private providers will be provided it. And as I say, all of that was detailed in our, for 25-26 anyway, in our scrutiny report, which went in March. I hope that answers the questions, Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, John. Perhaps just to kind of go a wee bit further on the numbers here in terms of the reduction in the take-up of places of private providers. I think your suggestion there was that this is in line with falling roles across the district. Is that a national trend? Is that something that's unique to Falkirk? Or has it also been offset by perhaps parents taking up places in local government run ELCs, or is it just the natural falling roles that we're seeing, that we appear to be seeing right across the education sector?
Yeah, it's a national trend, and it's reflected in falling roles. And just to illustrate it, 23-24, there were just over 3,300 children across 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, deferred places within our council and private providers. In 25-26, it was down to just under 3,100, and there will be a further decrease this year. So that is, obviously it's a bit of crystal ball gazing, because you don't know how many 2-year-olds are going to come into the system. We've got projections, but we need to make sure the budget is there, and then circumstances like other partners coming back on requiring funded places. But there is no parent disadvantaged as a result of this, and they will get a place either within any of our council, school nurseries, ELC nurseries or private providers, and there's a balance of provision across all the wards in Falkirk as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Convener.
Okay, and Councillor Spears.
I'll start with the question, and then I can clarify the reason for the question. Funded places from our private providers. Is there a 2-tier system in our nurseries regarding partner providers? I'm talking about the government money that is given. I understand the private providers get less than our council nurseries. for free child places at so many hours a week? Is it used across the board equally? I have the figures here.
Thank you, Councillor Spears. The rates that are paid to our partner providers are benchmarked across other local authorities, and we recently realigned our rates to come into the same rate as Stirling Council. So it's parental choice. It is more expensive to run council nurseries and standalone ELC centres just because of the terms and conditions that are attached nationally to those posts. But our private providers, as I say, in 25-26, there were just over 420 young people, children and parents making a choice to go to a private provider for whatever reason that was, and there was just over 2,600 making the choice to go into our school nurseries or our standalone ELC centres. But no, there's not a two-tier system. All nurseries are inspected by either the Care Inspectorate or HMIE, and the standards are exactly the same across all the centres, and the criteria to join us in Falkirk as one of our partners is developed from national criteria and applied. So it's a similar position in all local authorities.
We've seen that at the last budget, and it was defeated. Now, the National Day Nurseries Association, they say the majority of Scottish councils are not paying genuinely substantial rates. Are we in Falkirk?
It's benchmarked against other local authorities, and the rate is approved and discussed with the partner providers and our ELC teams. As I say, the latest benchmarking, we realigned ours to be the same as Stirling Council locally.
Yeah, but benchmarking just gives you an average, and if the National Association think that the majority of councils are not genuinely paying substantial rates, of course you're going to meet the benchmark, but are you going to meet the substantial rates?
I don't really have anything further to add to that, Councillor Spears, that parents have a choice where they want to send their children, and we allocate the funding according to the rates that have been agreed for the number of places that we see over a period of time. And there is sufficient places within the private partners and providers, and there's roughly about another 33 places that could be funded.
You've said that now 3 times, and we understand that, but are they getting the same rate as council nurseries? Tim McLaughlin, the Chief Executive of the National Association, says, everyone in early years learning and childcare across Scotland wants to see children and families thrive through the funded hours. However, we are seeing councils taking a very different approach. Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't. All of our evaluations of our nurseries, both from Care Inspectorate and HMIE, stand up very well nationally. They get an excellent experience. And during the summer, I was actually visiting all of our standalone ELC centres, and actually was inspired and really impressed by the experience that they get. And that's down to the really hard work of the employees within our centres and nurseries. So I would not agree with that statement.
Now, the Glasgow Herald states, free childcare postcode lottery revealed. Do you think it's a lottery in Falkirk?
No, I don't. I think we've got 39 nursery classes, 14 ELC centres, and we've got 40 to 50 private providers, all of which are funded in accordance with the rates that are approved.
Okay, I think Councillor Spears, I think you've had a response from the director. I don't think it's worth continuing to pursue this level of engagement.
Request.
Is it in the form of an amendment?
It's not forming an amendment, because this can be changed very easily by parity and equity for parents that put either their children to local authority nurseries or the private partnership. A partnership is a partnership, and the kids should be getting the same, because we're talking about taxpayers' money here, aren't we?
The children do.
The government gives it. The government gives it.
The children do get. We're confident that the children in our partner providers do get a good experience, and that's why they are on our partnership framework. And I illustrated the point where one of our nurseries went off the partnership framework because they weren't meeting the criteria. They are since being inspected by the Care Inspectorate, now meeting the criteria, and they will come back on board. So I am assured and confident that regardless of whether you go to a partner provider, private nursery, or within one of our council nurseries, the children get a really good experience.
Can we therefore, and this is a request, have figures come forward to us about the amount that their private partners and private nurseries are getting, and the amount that local authority nurseries, to see if they're comparable? And that'll answer the question for everybody, because I'm sure everybody who puts children at the heart of everything we do first.
And just to clarify that, there is a lot of detail in the scrutiny report from March 26. So I'm happy to forward that on to Councillor Spears and then to pick up any other questions. But I have clarified that it is more expensive to run council nurseries and ELC centres compared to the payments which go to private partner providers. But we are in line and benchmark it every year to make sure that the rate paid is in line with other local authorities.
In line, I believe you're below the budget payments for partners.
I think this is Councillor Spears, this is a revenue budget. No, I'm sorry, but this is about the revenue budget as a whole.
Yes,
and you're focused on.
This is part of the revenue.
This is only focused on one little section of it.
Well, that's called scrutiny.
But absolutely, and I get that, but you've had your answer. I'm now going to move on to Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. Get back perhaps to the higher level scrutiny. First of all, how confident are we that the current underspend is going to be sustained? I realise that this is just early days in the financial year, so we have to take things carefully. But how confident are we that the current underspend is going to be sustained, given that it's really mostly driven by vacancies and recruitment delays, which we would hope are not going to be ongoing?
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. It is, in some ways, it's kind of difficult to answer that. Absolutely, but I would say at this point I'm fairly confident that we would reach this level or a similar level of underspend for 26-27, and part of that is because some of those vacancies, some of those vacancy management issues, we've seen that pattern repeated in the last couple of years, where we've seen underspends from employee savings, and I guess that kind of relates to the fact that we're a big organisation. There will always be a level of churn in our staffing, and we are looking at how do we account for that in our budget, recognise that happens each year. So that work's ongoing separately. I would also say that at this point we've maintained loan charges at budget. But as we've talked about, again, that's another area where we tend to see some flexibility in the budget. So there's a couple of other areas that, and we've referred to in the report, that we're reviewing that at the moment. So at this point, I'm fairly confident that we will get to the level of underspend that's projected here, and possibly a little more, but it is early in the financial year. There could be shocks. So I can't tell you I'm 100% confident, but fairly confident.
Okay. Thank you. My second question is partly for Amanda, but also partly, I think, for Marie, who I see has joined us online. And it's about the integration joint board and the projected £3.3 million overspend. First of all, what is the council's exposure if that overspend materialises? But also, what mitigating actions are being progressed through the Health and Social Care Partnership and through the council?
Marie would want to come in, but I suppose so. We've got our agreed integration scheme, and our integration scheme sets out the steps that we would go through where we anticipate an overspend, and the first protocol of that is a recovery plan from the integration joint board. If we would also look at things like integration joint board reserves, and ultimately come to a view on what the remaining overspend is, and then where that sits, and then we would look at how we would fund that. And I think we're fortunate in Falkirk. We've got good relationships with NHS Forth Valley, we've got good relationships with the Integration Joint Board, so we can have these quite sort of open discussions throughout the course of the year. And I suppose we flag it up in this report because there is a potential that we could have to fund a significant proportion of that overspend, and so it could impact on our underspend level, or it could, for example, impact on the budgetary pressures reserve, which we are fortunate to have. I think that was a really good decision that the council took to make sure we've got something substantial there in case there is a pressure. So, but I'll maybe let Marie come in on the back.
Thanks to yourself, Convener. Councillor Hannah, at the point in time that this paper was being prepared, we didn't have the NHS projections at that point. So that 3.3 million in there was in relation to the social care side of the budgets only. So we now have the NHS projections and it's offsetting this. So it's projecting an underspend of 3.4 million. So it's in essence offsetting that overspend. And as in the last couple of years, NHS Forth Valley are absolutely content that we use any underspend on their side to offset any overspend in social care. Now, there are a number of risks in there, and you'll be aware sitting in our IJB that the risk of demand for care at home and the transformation programme that we have is fairly substantial. So I expect that there will be some non-delivery of that. So we're assessing that at the moment, and when we bring the next paper to IJB following the end of August one, we'll bring more clarity around that. But at the moment, our level of reserves, we'll get contingency reserves of 2.4 million, and we have some service pressure reserves as well that we're reviewing, just to make sure that we understand the full commitment against them. So at the moment, I am not anticipating that there'll be any additional risk share for the council over and above the additional recurring funding that we've provided this year for us. So at the moment, I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to manage it within the IJB position. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. That's reassuring that things are in hand to deal with it. Just a final question. Given that the projected general fund reserves exceed the upper policy limit, are there options being considered for the use of any of the excess reserves? While it's a comforting thought that we have reserves, but if there are good purposes to which it could be put, then perhaps we need to consider that.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. And at the moment, we sort of chose because it's so early in the financial year, we chose in this report just to show it flowing through to the general fund reserve. But I think as we get more information as we move through the financial year, we would look at what the alternative options are. And it goes back to partly what we discussed with the capital report. For example, we could repay some debt, or we could use some of that money to support capital, reducing the need to borrow in the capital programme. So we would look at the sort of range of options that are there, and we would come back in future reports with recommendations for that. Again, it is early in the financial year, as you've sort of said, where's our confidence around this? And we still want to see what's going to happen and where how things are going to play out. But I would anticipate bringing back options for members, maybe around about November, which the next projection report would come. Thanks.
Right. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, convener.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no further questions, as I said, the reports were noting, and I'm going to ask that the committee note the report, note the position in respect to reserves, and note the status of the approved savings for 26-27. I will ask for a seconder.
Thank you again. Happy to second.
Okay, thank you. And we'll take any comment from group leaders. Councillor Hannah.
No further comment.
Okay. Bailey Kerr.
Noted, convener. However, it wasn't a question for John. However, it makes it harder when you've got twins. Just saying, like. No further comment.
Okay, thank you, Bailey Kerr. Councillor Spears.
I hope it is. This is noted, but I hope also the request, because a lot of parents and private nurseries are awaiting the response from Mr. Reid. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Murtagh. No. Okay, thank you for that. Are we all agreed? Okay, thank you. We now move into agenda item 11, and it is the community asset transfer of Cairn Gymnastics Centre to Stenhousemuir Gymnastics Club. Okay, Mr. Kettrick.
Thank you, convener. We now enter the quasi-judicial part of the council executive, and the first report is the asset transfer proposals for Cairn Gymnastics Centre to Stenhousemuir Gymnastics Club. Elected members are asked to agree the full ownership of the centre at the proposed price of £1, reflecting the benefits that will derive from the project. The recommendations set out, as we normally do for community asset transfers, to agree. The Director of Place Services is authorised to prepare and include a condition in the decision notice allowing the council the option to reacquire the property. Agree that the transfer will be subject to any existing burdens and restrictions on the council's title, and agree to grant from our enablement fund the sum of up to £188,712 to support improvements in the facility. Elected members should note that the assessments undertaken for the asset transfer meet the criteria set out in the Community Empowerment Scotland Act and the Disposal of Land by Local Authorities Regulations 2010, and therefore we seek to get approval to instruct and authorise the Director of Place Services to issue the appropriate decision notice and to agree and conclude all necessary arrangements to progress the asset transfer. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kettrick. If any questions to Mr. Kettrick on this item? No. Okay, in which case I'm happy to move the paper.
Happy to second, convener.
Thank you. Councillor Murtagh.
That's fine, convener. I was just going to jump in and say I'm more than happy to second, and I'm delighted to see this coming forward, and thank officers particularly for their work with the community groups in some of the earlier challenges that we had about equipment, and it's good to see this on the report and have this go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, convener. Also happy to see this report coming forward. I just want to make a special mention of the officers, in particular Jessica Patterson, who I hear such good reports of in terms of her help for the different local groups. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hannah. Bailey Kerr,
No comment.
Councillor Spears.
It's good to see a lot of the local groups, especially like say Grangemouth Stadium and our sports groups, actually improving the asset that they've got. And it's maybe a lesson for Falkirk Council to see that maybe this work should have been done earlier.
Okay, I will take note of that, and I'm sure officers will as well, considering the proposal was brought forward in 2016. So on that, are we all agreed? Yeah, thank you. Okay, item 12 is the community asset transfer of lease to Carnshore Community Hall, and I'll go to Mr. Kettrick.
Thank you, Convener. The next report, the purpose of it is to consider the community asset transfer by way of lease to Carn and Carnshore for Carnshore Community Hall to Carn and Carnshore Community Hall Management Committee. Executive is recommended to agree to the lease for £1 per annum for a period of 20 years, reflecting the benefits that will derive from the project, and agree that the lease shall be granted on a full repair and insuring tenant basis. And the Council will continue to be entitled to bring the lease to an end if the lease subjects are not used for the permitted use, which is as a community hall. The Council Executive is asked to agree a grant sum of up to £187,646 from the Council's Enablement Fund to support capital improvements to the facility. Again, elected members should be aware that assessments undertaken confirm that the proposals are in line with the Council's statutory obligations in terms of the Community Empowerment Scotland Act and the disposal of land by local authorities regulations. And if minded to agree, they would seek to have the Director of Place Services authorised to prepare and conclude a condition in the decision notice for the Council to bring that lease to the end, but also to issue the decision notice to agree and conclude all necessary legal arrangements to progress the disposal. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Kendrick. Any questions to officers? No. Okay, in which case I am happy to move the report. Okay,
I'll formally second.
Councillor Deacon. Councillor Murtagh.
Yeah, I would also be happy to second, but I want to pay. I think this particular community asset transfer has been one of the longest going. It's previously, even in the 2016 iterations of decisions, the community were working extremely hard to bring about this community asset transfer. It is really, their work has been exemplary. I know that many officers came with councillors to visit the work of that hall, and what they've done there as a committee has been fantastic. And I think it is great to see that some of the obstacles that have had have been worked through with officers, and we're seeing a conclusion of this. It's a really positive thing for the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? No. Okay, we're happy to agree. Okay, thank you for that. Item 13 is the community asset transfer of the Dawson Park Pavilion to Grahamson Community Club. Mr. Kettrick.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to consider the asset transfer for Dawson Park Pavilion to Grahamston Community Club for a lease of 20 years. Council Executive is asked to grant that lease for the basis of £1 for the 20 years, reflecting the benefits that will derive from the project, and agree that the terms of that lease will be on a full repair and insuring tenant basis, with the Council again entitled to bring the lease to an end should the subjects not be used for the permitted use narrated in the lease for a period of 1 year or more. Elected members should note that this asset transfer is slightly different from the normal in that the pavilion is held within the Falkirk Common Good account, and therefore that the approval today is subject to the condition on the outcome of the public consultation that will be undertaken in accordance with the Local Government Scotland Act 1973, which relates to common good properties. If the asset transfer is progressed both through the common good consultation and agreed today, the council would seek to provide enablement funds of up to £18,348 to the club to support capital improvements to the pavilion. Again, further to that assessment that's undertaken and outlined in 4.23 of the report. Note that assessments undertaken by officers confirm that the proposals are in line with the council's statutory obligations and agree that the Director of Police Services is authorised to prepare and issue the appropriate decision notice to conclude the necessary legal arrangements as necessary in the future. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to Mr. Kettrick? No. Mr. Kettrick, what would happen should the consultation in relation to the common good come back and say no?
It's a good point, Convener. Whilst we wouldn't want to preempt the consultation, we do think that would be unlikely, given that the club have occupied that pavilion for a long time and continue to use it. That we would then not be able to actually go down the longer lease arrangement with them, and we would look to try and find another solution for them, which may mean them relocating away from that historic presence that they've had there at Dawson Park. As I say, whilst we think it's unlikely, if it did happen, that would be the only option that would be open to us, is to and maybe go into some sort of temporary arrangement as they have at the moment, which is month to month, but it would certainly be something that we would need to come back and revisit.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? No. Okay, I am happy to move the report. Councillor Sinclair?
Yep, happy to second. Great wee community club just up the road for where I am. So, yeah, it's a busy wee club and there's always football on at the weekend. So, yeah, happy to second this.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. Just really congratulations to all the community groups that have come forward, as well as to the officers in terms of the work that's gone into this. The community asset transfers have been really quite successful, and I think all power to the communities.
Okay, thank you for that. Bailey Kerr?
I just wished all asset transfers was as easy as these three. And to go along with Councillor Sinclair, the Grahamston Football Club has been a long established club in the Falkirk area and have rung through many Scottish internationalists who have went on to captain Scotland, which is Davy Weir. Was one of them, and hope that this transfer gives them the stability to continue for many years to come.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears?
Likewise, I wish them every success, and I'm sure they'll do well with Falkirk Common Good Fund.
Okay, are we all agreed? Okay, thank you for that. That brings us to the end of this morning's executive, and we've just about made it for 12:30, which is quite good. So I just hope that you have a pleasant rest of the day, and hope to catch up with folks in the near future. Councillor Garner.
Thanks to the Chair, and thanks for fighting through the pain.
Okay.